My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Well, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Well, we're excited today to have Dr. Joel Bennett join us. Welcome, Dr. Bennett. We are so looking forward to this conversation. So I was telling Walker about our pre-talk and then, in reading some of your books and the Time and Intimacy, we will grab a copy of that for sure.
It's pretty academic, so yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, more to learn.
If you want to talk about this some other time, I'm happy to.
Well, we're using the words, my inner knowing. What do you call that voice inside of you?
Well, I mentioned the new book is out, and Emily Sadowski, I think I mentioned to you, her book is called What is Intuition? And I highly recommend her.
Okay.
She's wonderful. Her dissertation was on intuition. And having read that book, what the subtitle of the book is Intuition on Its Own Terms. And one of the things I learned from her is that we don't really have a language outside of the academic, oh, that's your intuition. Oh, that's your tell, or that's your gut, right?
Yeah.
And what she's saying is that, no, wait, there's so much more going on here at a quantum level.
Yeah.
And so I want to say that I'm now at a point where it's like, I don't know, because I think the part of it is that we don't know. That it's that part of us which doesn't know that gets us to the inner knowing. And if we start labeling it as intuition or that, it actually can short circuit our going deeper.
Oh, like if we've overdefined it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. As we do, right?
Yeah. But that's her. So that's where I'm at now. I'm like, oh, what is it? I mean, I think, like I said, there's a whole realm of possibilities to answer that question.
Sure. When we spoke before, you talked about years ago having some exposure to neurofeedback. Was there a particular period of time in your life where you felt like you shifted directions? Many times.
Today. Me too.
That's hilarious.
You mean like in terms of the story of life, the arc of life?
Yeah. Yeah.
Multiple times. I mean, transition points, pivot points, many times. Yeah.
Yeah. What's a significant one that comes to mind for you?
Well, I think I went on a 3-month silent retreat.
Wow.
And was pretty much silent for the whole 3 months. And it wasn't the retreat that was the pivot point, but it was coming out of it and reorienting to the world was the pivot point, because what it got me in touch with was that I've spent all of my life up to that point reorienting to the world.
Yeah.
You get born, you get educated, you have your parents who are learning a lot more about life than you are as a child. With a child, you go through school and you're just getting oriented to everything.
Yeah.
And so that experience reminded me that my soul is really on this deeper journey. So I had to be reminded that I'm being reoriented to the world,
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, wait. This is not just happening now because I came out of the retreat. I've always been trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing here.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Right? And then, and what that did was it made me realize how everybody takes everything so seriously.
Yes.
And that's where our problems start.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I mean, in terms of people taking things too seriously, I mean, if you just, all you have to do is turn on the TV or listen to any news, except for stand-up comedy. I want to tell you something that recently happened. I am a Chris Farley fan. I think Chris Farley was one of the most incredible comedic geniuses of all time, because it wasn't like just, the fatso falling down.
Yeah.
He really had a way. So about a year ago, David Spade and Dana Carvey, they have a podcast.
Oh, really?
And they had a whole podcast dedicated to, I forget, it was the anniversary of his death. It was meant for people to come on and share their experience of Chris, who he was to them. So they had incredible people on. They even had Bo Derek on, who was with him in, Tommy Boy.
Oh, right.
They had Chris Rock. They had all the Saturday Night Live people on. John Lovitz. And what was interesting is that it was a long tribute. Adam Sandler. And eventually, as people were talking, they would get to the serious part. That Chris was really in trouble. And they all really tried to help him in their own way. It was very sad, very sad. And so it kept blending in and out of these stories of him that were just incredible. Because he was always on, he was laughing all the time.
Yeah.
But he had this addiction, serious addiction. And then I listened to a follow-up podcast, and they kind of incidentally said, we've got a lot of calls from people who enjoyed listening to that podcast. And in fact, we got several people calling who said, I listened to that podcast and I stopped using.
Wow.
I stopped, right? They got it.
You're right.
They got that. It was a beautiful thing,
Yes.
And I think addiction, that's a lot of our work and your work as well, is at a level of people taking themselves so seriously they don't even know how serious they're taking themselves, because it's gone off the tracks, it's gone off the rails. And I do believe that a lot of the problems we have is we're attracted to people who are addicted to power, addicted to money, addicted to sex, whatever it is. And the whole culture is making money hand over foot to support others' addictions. Yes. And ultra processed food. Just this thing came out about Cheerios. I mean, Cheerios has this chemical in it that's known to cause some kind of major disease, And so we've gone completely off into this world of let's do everything we can to make people addicted, no matter the cost. Yeah. And we all act tongue in cheek, like, aha, hey, I got that. And, yeah, I got that. And hey, let's vote for him, and hey, and we're all sort of like cheeky with each other. But at a certain level, we're lemmings just going off the cliff. Yes. Yeah. So what happens is once you start realizing this, it's like, this is a major comedy. It's this laughable show. Because if you look at it any other way, I'm going to need neurofeedback. Yes, lots. So that's what I kind of mean by that. And fortunately or unfortunately, there are many celebrities who are testaments to that, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where the Chris Farley piece comes in. That I think we have to take this time that we have here seriously, which means we take nothing serious except for a regular spiritual practice. That's the only thing we need to take seriously, is having a dedicated, regular practice that helps us to feel alive and experience awe, you know. And that's where this whole quest for presence work comes.
Yeah.
I hope that wasn't too much of a ramble.
No,
but, you know.
Not at all.
No, it's very helpful perspective. It really is. I mean, I was just thinking the other day, I don't remember where we were, but I was imagining the lemmings, like just this group of people, like we're moving, but we don't even know where we're moving. Oh, it was when we were in Atlanta, you know, downtown. I mean, it was just like, yeah, I mean, literally like people not present at all, literally just moving. And I was like, wow, this is just like a group of lemmings. Like we don't even know where we're going. Right. No, it was fascinating.
But we act as if we do.
We do.
You know, we all act as if that's the bane of humanity. You know, here we are in this very tiny speck, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think we get ourselves to the point where we not only say that it's a comedy, but we actually know it's a comedy?
Go on a 3-month retreat.
Sure.
No, I mean, you know, I think everybody has their own path to that. You know, I mean, you've worked with a lot of people, and you know, everybody has their own way to the wake up call.
Yes.
So I don't think there's anything, despite the thousands of best-selling books that have a prescription that shows you the way, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the reason we have 1,000 best-selling books that shows us the way, is because there is no one way.
Right.
And despite what people will tell you, you know, that's why I love Scott. You know, Scott Peck's Road Less Traveled, right, was a major turning point, I think, for a lot of people. Because it's, see where I'm going? It's like the road less traveled.
Right. For you, what was your wake-up call, as best as you recall?
Well, there have been a number one. I talk about this in, I forget which of the books, but the day that I experienced my father, I can't really share, but he lifted myself and my brother and threw us against the wall.
Yeah.
That was like, wait a second, you know, at whatever, 7, 8, or 9, you know, okay, no, this is not, this is something really wrong here, you know?
Yeah.
I had enough sense then. That was one of the wake-up calls. So unfortunately, adversity and trauma for many people there's a category of wake-up calls there, right?
Yes.
But then there's the other category of wake-up calls, which is this sense of awe or opening up to the divine. And you know, there, being a child and looking at the ocean, you know, whatever it was that you see, you know. I have grandchildren, and I was telling this story. One of them, 2 years old, we're walking by a bush, and I point to the bush, and he's looking at the bush, and he goes, whoa, it's a bush.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, what's my wake up call? It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Where it could be.
Yeah. Oh, for me, I would say watching children is for sure one of my most exciting things to do. I love watching how they watch the world and explore things, and watching their brain learn is fascinating to me. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. That gives us some, yes, the preciousness is there, which is one of the qualities that allow us to get back to this place of awakening, where we start realizing we at the same time don't take it so seriously, but at the same time we do realize we need to kind of like level up, you know? So that's a great example of, I think, preciousness is right there, you know? It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's all gonna go. It's all fragile. I better do something while it lasts. You know.
So when you talk about the process of leveling up, could you tell us more about what that is for you?
Regular practice, doing the work that we do, being of service, trying to dial down how much I complain to my wife. Whatever. Doing my best to, that's a big one. Being nice to people, watching my words, being true to my calling. You know, recently it's interesting having this career, because I'm like, right after this, I'm going to do a trainer, and I've done about 10 of them in the past month. And in my work, right, there's this work I do, workplace health promotion, substance abuse prevention. And but at the same time, I have my quest for presence stuff, right?
Yeah.
And people will say, I admire Joel. I mean, somebody posted this on LinkedIn, because he's still able to pursue his interests, his passions, even though he's got this other thing. And what's fascinating about it is people don't realize that it's all one and the same.
Right.
You know, it's all one and the same, and that more and more, but the world divides us up. That goes back to the earlier conversation about professional identity.
Yes.
You know, and I think people are afraid to recognize that we are really multidimensional whole human beings that have all these different sides to us.
Yes.
But you're looking at each other.
Yeah.
But they want to peg you. You know, you want to be pegged. You know, and I think that right there, that status consciousness that comes with that, and how people stigmatize themselves because they don't have that perfectionism, fear of missing out, imposter syndrome, all that whole, you know, constellation of things is more of people taking themselves too seriously. And if we can just recognize that we're not our professional identities, that we're so much more, and we're amazing, multifaceted. So to go back around to the question, I think it's just, everybody talks about being yourself, but it's very hard to recognize when other people are just being themselves outside of whatever context you might put them in.
True.
You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
I'm just because of the recognition of the truth of what you said, but from the opposite side, which is, in my experience, I will want to peg somebody, even though, I mean, Theresa has a saying, we're so complex, and see, it's on her t-shirt actually. And, but recognizing it from the others, I can recognize it for me, you know, sometimes when I wake up again and again and again. But I certainly, when I'm looking at you or the other, it's easy for me to just want to put you in that, you know, category. Just one. That's why I'm laughing. It was just because I appreciated the truth of what you had to say.
So just to make sure you recognize that all of us have a tendency to want to toward snap judgment, or toward labeling, or toward putting people in a category. It's part of the human condition. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And but recognizing I know it, but I don't know it. It's just a reminder, you know, and I like moments like that. And when we're talking about, well, when did you wake up? You know, well, what was your wake up call? Well, I have to set the alarm daily because I go right back to sleep because it's true.
Right.
And that comes back to it's a journey, not it's a continuing journey. So that's how it is for me anyway.
Yeah. It's interesting as you're talking, what I'm thinking about, when we facilitate retreats years ago, I started, like, I have a sign on the door when they enter the space that says, share your name, not your occupation. And, I don't want you to share with each other what you do when you come into this space. I just want you to be you. And when you guys were talking, I was thinking, yeah, we think that if I know what you do, that somehow creates some level of safety. Like, I know how to be with you if I know where you fit. And I don't think it's true. I just think that we think that.
It's interesting we're talking about this because the book that I just published, book 3 in Quest for Presence, the attractions, the basic idea relates to this. So we'll pull back for a second and let's just talk about personality and traits. So on one level, there's pegging people for their occupation. There's also pegging people for, oh, hey, you're a Scorpio.
Yes.
Right. But then there's pegging people, oh, you're on the Myers-Briggs, you're an intuitive feeling extrovert. And then you have all these different models out there.
Yes.
That another, like just as there are 1,000 bestsellers for The Way, there's 1,000 personality assessments. And so my belief is that eventually, as humanity evolves, that all of that's going to fade away. The Enneagram, which people don't really understand, by the way.
Agreed.
But the point is that we have this tendency, when we talk about stereotyping and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and racism and prejudice, and oh, you're a Republican, or whatever we do, where the word is reification, right? Confirmation bias. I was trained as a social psychologist. So there's this very entrenched cognitive way that people interact in the world. They have to. I mean, we need that. But then we start taking it too seriously, you see? So instead of that, the alternative to that is that let's stop for a second. Put all those I love it. Don't share your occupation, just share your name, right? You could don't share anything about yourself, just show up, right? So, right? But so the alternative to all of that is to recognize that, you said it, we're on a journey. Each of us is on a journey. What is that journey? It is the fulfillment of our destiny. That's the journey. If I had to put it in simple terms, we're all on a journey to fulfill our destiny, whatever that is. Now, that may sound like a tautology, but let's bear with me for a second, because, at least we can agree maybe there's a purpose that we're trying to fulfill, or a goal, or a calling, or a cause, or a legacy, whatever it is that we're doing. We're on that path, and we're all on that path. Okay, that's the assumption. Is that a first stop there? Can we just agree to that? Maybe that everybody's on some path toward the fulfillment of something?
Yes.
Sure.
It could be getting your next Pop-Tart. It could be whatever it is, but you're on that path. So, right? But not Cheerios. Anyway.
Not anymore.
So with that, the assumption I make, and I talk about attractions, we are at some level attracted to our destiny. So all those wake-up calls that we talked about earlier, all of those pivot moments that we talked about, something's going on in the arc of our evolution that's drawing us to the fulfillment of something, right? Could be just paying off old bad karma, whatever it was. If you're in prison and you're listening to this, that's a whole nother frame for like, what are you doing here? So, okay, if we are attracted to our destiny, let's drill down into that and look at that. You see? And so that's not personality. That's not a trait. That's not a color. It's not an enneagram. It's something else that has more going on with the soul, because you get to this point where you realize, oh, hey, what am I doing here? Like we talked about earlier, right? It's like, oh, I need to get oriented to being here in the world,
Yeah.
So what I try to do is then say, well, what are those forces that are attracting us? Because the word attraction, not the law of attraction. Let's put that aside, because that's also been co-opted and distorted. We're attracted to our destiny. Well, the destiny means there's some force at work. In the human mind, the word attraction, we think about magnet, or we think about something pulling us, So what is that? What is the force? What is that force that's pulling us? And every mystic has written about this in one way or another. For Rumi and Shams Tabriz and all of the Persian mystics, the force is the friend, the divine lover, right? In Judaism, it's the bride of Sabbath. In Greek mythology, it was whichever god or goddess was at work, the fates, You see? So humanity has been, earlier on at least, really doing a deeper dive into understanding what are these forces that are at work. In astrology, it's Saturn, But what's happened in the past 100 to 200 years is we've gotten away from this kind of deeper, organic, relationship to the world. And everything's been, no, you are this or that or this or that. And it robs us of our process of coming to a deeper understanding of our soul.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking about traits or personalities, let's talk about what are we attracted to? What's calling us? What's moving us? Let's talk about that. Why are you doing this podcast? There's a reason you're doing this podcast.
Yes.
What is that? What is it that you're attracted to that's calling you to do this podcast?
Yeah. Do you want to go first or you want me to?
You're up.
I'm
only taking the softball questions today.
That's right there. That says something about his attraction.
Yeah. It's interesting question. For me, it is what I have learned about myself for sure is to pay attention to what I pay attention to and repetitively pay attention. I am interested in a lot of things. I'm very curious, but the things that continue to catch my attention. And one of the things that I became aware of in relationship with Walker was that our conversations that he and I had were not like any other conversations I had with anybody else. And I would talk to him about that and say, I believe it would be helpful for people to listen to us have conversation in the way that we are curious with each other and vulnerable and, willing to share and it be safe. And even if we don't see things the same way, that it's okay, that, we're not in competition. And so for me, it was an opportunity to talk about topics maybe that people don't talk about and to do it in a way that hopefully resonates with people, that part inside them that wants that too, but they don't feel like they can have that. When we very first started, we got a lot of feedback from people that were like I felt home, like I felt like I had a place, like I felt like here are people that I can't find. So for me, it was like this, it was a calling. I mean, I don't know how many years have I been talking about it?
5 at least.
Yeah. And it has been great. And then also wanting other people to share their journeys, because there's as many paths as there are people. And if people are willing to share their journey, knowing that it touches somebody, right? It gives somebody a little bit more clarity or a little bit more motivation or something. I know that in listening, we learn if somehow it's connecting to us. And I don't feel, and I can't remember if we talked about this before, but I think, Joel, you and I talked about it when we talked the first time about the default mode network. When we are more protected, right? We're not taking things in. We're not really learning. So like if I'm sitting and I'm talking to a client in session about something, we may be having a conversation and, an understanding and exploration, but maybe it doesn't really integrate, and maybe it's because the focus feels like it's too on them. I don't know. I mean, it's not something I study, right? But what I know is that, once we started talking and people were sharing just how much it was impacting them in such a different way and finding so much more connection or integration differently than when we're in session. That was a really powerful experience, to hear that feedback. And so less protected, our body, we're not being challenged so directly. We can hear it differently. Our body hears it differently. So that's what I'm thinking.
Do you want to share what's attracted you to this?
To this, Theresa, I live in a different world as a trial attorney. One of the things I've recognized in our relationship, and I've said this before, is this focus. It's easy to have these types of conversations early on in a relationship. And as, the years go by, it becomes lessened and I don't know the reasons for that. You guys are the experts in this area. But what I know is when we turn on the recorder and the headsets are on and the mics are up, there's this renewed focus on this soul that I love. And it's a really nice connection. And then the other thing that I guess attracts me to this too is I've learned in my profession, which is bizarre, the value of vulnerability. And I think I'm practicing modeling that for people.
Oh, wow.
So
that's beautiful.
That's
so
why
beautiful.
I keep coming back.
No, it's beautiful. So this does go back to the conversation that I think many of us, I mean, myself, don't have a model or experience or memory of what it feels like to be in a safe, intimate space.
Yeah.
Where two people are sharing what's happening for them because of love, not because of they're trying to get a point across, And so I think what you both shared is that the force, going back to what I was saying earlier, is love.
Mm-hmm.
That's the force. That's what's attracting.
Yeah.
And I think that is really what it's all about anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And we take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and it's okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
It's just good to remember frequently.
Yes, over and over again. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the forgiveness. I mean, all the qualities: forgiveness, grace, preciousness, awe, savoring, fulfillment, momentousness, ordinariness, all those qualities, those treasures. So the holding of the space is a term that people have that's gone into our lexicon,
Yeah.
holding space. And I even think that doesn't really capture this because we're all being held, you know? And I think what you're doing here is channeling that truth. That's what it feels and sounds like. You're channeling the truth that we're all being held. And to help people welcome that. So thank you for that.
Joel, one of the things that I think about, when you ask that question also was, and this is just, how I visualize things, but like this movement of energy. And so what I feel like when I'm doing something, that I'm passionate about, there's a certain movement of energy that I like see like in my mind, not visually. But what I feel like when Walker and I are doing something together, that energy moves in a completely different way with a completely different force. And is that something that you have explored or talk about in all of your research and writings?
Well, tell me more. When you say different in a different way, what do you notice?
What I notice is that our creativity is, oh gosh, I don't know, more detailed, bigger. I mean, I guess in my mind, it's more, colorful and full, that when we're focused on something together, that feels more grounded.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So definitely. So it's conscious partnership. You're not just going through whatever tasks you need to go through. There's some intentionality to do this with some amount of consciousness and intention in the partnership itself.
Yeah.
Right? So once you've made that decision to do that, which is not common, then you are definitely going to tap into different types of energies and see different patterns than you would ordinarily experience if you're just an individual who's married or an individual who is living with somebody. It's hard to talk about because I've been married 30 years, and most of my experience is just like, WTF, how did this happen? And how does it keep happening? And why are you being nice to me? and so I'm arrested. For me, it's different. For me, I'm just arrested. You know what I mean? I'm like, I wouldn't say it's a conscious partnership in the sense of we're doing work in the world together. We're not hosting a podcast together, and for everybody, the relationship work is different, I think for me, it's just gratitude because I mentioned a little bit about my upbringing. I was a, very, very difficult childhood, divorce, alcohol, early death. And so I'm just happy to be here. And I'm in awe. I am in awe of my wife and what she does So I think the energies or forces you're talking about that you're privy to sound like they're a function of your intention to have a conscious partnership at some level. Does that
Definitely.
answer your question?
Yeah.
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 No, I'd agree. And renewed intention.
Yeah. Right.
Every time.
All right.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joel, for you, when you were saying that, I was thinking about, even the gratitude. How do you keep it at the top of your consciousness so that you can access it?
No, it goes back, daily practice.
Daily practice, yeah.
I mean, people have rosaries, people have mementos, they have coins, I mean, things that they can touch.
Yeah.
You have to pinch yourself. I think, one of the forces that we talk about is the cause and effect or karma. And we often in our culture because of the way the culture is, we're over attracted to that force. We're going to have to make things happen, schedule things, get the routine down, produce, be efficient, go, right? Which, of course, workaholism. And so I think the first thing and the most important thing is stopping. There really can be no intimacy if we're just go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I believe a lot of the go and workaholism is because of a fear of intimacy. And all the labels we talked about and pegging people is part of that cultural contract we've made to not really get to know each other. So gratitude, which is of all the soulful capacities, is the one that we're most able to touch into or talk about the most, comes, stop and smell the roses, right?
Yes.
So what's happening in our culture since COVID is this fascinating thing. The whole world suffered. And if that wasn't enough, Russia had to invade Ukraine. And we have all this craziness going on with Israel and Gaza. And it's like, we don't stop. And it looks to me like everything says, stop. Climate change. Stop.
Yeah.
Just stop. So what's happened is, this goes back to the whole, menace of clock time. What you're doing here with this podcast and creating the couch of listening as a couple with, intention for conscious partnership is a way for people to come to this place of stopping. And frankly, I think it's the best way, because otherwise it's just some guy talking about whatever idea he or she has about whatever, instead of creating that space for stopping. So that's the most, that took too long, but succinct answer.
No.
Stop.
No.
I'm buying your coffee. I like it.
Oh, me too. It was on our drive down here, Joel Walker was reading, one of your books out loud to me while I was driving. And what I so appreciated, beyond just listening to him read to me, which I always love, was bringing into my awareness time over and over and over again. Very aware on the drive that my being able to consider how I spend my time was so helpful. And it's not like we haven't talked about it even recently, you and I, about that need for more just time together doing nothing. Lying in bed, just looking at each other. We don't, have a TV in the bedroom, and we don't watch much TV. I don't watch hardly any at all, and haven't for years, because I found it wasn't good for me and I didn't find it helpful. And or talk radio. It's not like, I hear about the world. I have plenty of people in my life that inform me about the world. But just being able to have that space and that time. And so I so appreciated listening to him read your book.
Yeah, which one did you read?
Well, we did Quest for Presence, and then we started the book one.
A Connoisseur of Time?
Sorry. Connoisseur of Time was the first one. Right. That was the one you read out loud. Right.
So thank you so much. Thank you. That's the whole point of it. Thank you, because you just helped me validate. You don't just sit down and write the thing. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you don't know how it's going to land. So I appreciate your validation. Thank you.
Yeah. Connoisseur of Time. No, it really was very helpful. Very helpful for me. Yeah.
There's a quote, because I went back to Time and Intimacy, right?
Right.
And
right.
Which there's this quote by Rilke that I have here. Self-transformation is precisely what life is. Self-transformation is precisely what life is. And human relationships, which are an extract of life, are the most changeable of all. Rising and falling from minute to minute. And lovers are those in whose relationship and contact no one moment resembles another. So this is an answer to your earlier question. Why is it that over time, those conversations in a relationship start to feel different? It's because people forget to be lovers. That's what Rilke is saying. You see that? Because when you're really in love and you're really truly loving, no one moment resembles another. Is what he says.
Yeah, that's lovely. It makes me think about the first conversation we had, after you told me that you thought that you loved me. And, I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. And then we went on a walk, I don't know, like a week or two later to talk about it. And, and it's interesting upon reflection that what I was asking for was what you just read. I said, I take relationship very seriously, and I'm not here to play. I don't need anybody. If you want to be in relationship with me, it'll be work every day the rest of your life, because I want
so laying it down.
Yeah. I want the healthiest relationship. And I don't even know what that looks like, but I want it. And so what I want is a partner who will put effort into that every day, grow every day. And it got really quiet. And I remember I was crying while I was saying it, right? I was so this is what I want. And I remember, who's going to make me cry again? I remember I said, "What are you thinking?" And he said, "I'm terrified." And I said, "Good, because I'm serious."
Yeah.
And, and thank you for accepting the challenge, right? Yeah, because it is. It just, and we're human and we struggle, and right? Life is complex. We are complex.
I have to say something.
Yes.
I am afraid to death of my wife. Right? I have this, I don't know what it is, right? But I think there's a whole nother thing. We're going to run out of time here.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
The way in my experience as a man with a woman, there's this whole other level of existential threat. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but I know that it's part of that deep, deep, deep vulnerability. So when he said, I'm terrified, right on.
And sometimes truth is that simple. You want some intellectual, deep response, and truth just can cut through all of that. So
yeah. So good for you.
Yeah,
that's great. That's good. Thanks. More validation for me. Thank you.
Good.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that quote. Oof. Yeah.
Yeah. We were driving through Tennessee, the middle of Tennessee, while I was reading to her, and I was thinking I need to come back to this, when we're not in the moving car, and go back through the lists and the exercises and things. So I'm really very much looking forward to it, Joel.
Yeah.
Well, make sure I get your address, because I want to send you a copy of book 3, because it has that quote, Quest for Presence Inventory, which is, quote, a personality inventory of the attractions. So you're on it. I'd love for you to take it and see where you guys respectively fall in your attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can talk to you about, if you want, how your attractions are dynamic, in the dance. And that's the other thing. And then I know we'll stop here. You're also in a dance.
Yes. Ooh. Yes.
And that's something to also recognize, that if no one moment resembles another, it's definitely a dance.
Yes.
Right. Unless you're just doing the same hip hop routine over and over again. But you guys don't look like hip hop to me.
Yeah. No. No, I use the word dance, in regards to relationship, because to me it is a dance, learning how to dance together. Yeah. Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like, there's just so many things we could keep talking about, but anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap this up today?
No, I appreciate what you're doing. And I think from listening to you and last time and experiencing you guys this time, I just want to acknowledge and applaud you for doing this as a couple, and we need more of it. And so if there's good in the world, folks.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
Thanks, Joel.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.